Richard Halverson lived through the polio epidemic of the 40s and 50s. He watched the paralyzing impact of that disease that prevented people from being able to breathe on their own. With that came the invention of the iron lung. It was like a steel casket in which people were laid, and then the changing pressure in the casket inflated and deflated their lungs, making breathing possible. When Halverson became the chaplain of the United States Senate in the 80s and 90s, he looked over the shoulder, reflecting on that epidemic, and thought what a tragic mistake it would be to think that the solution to the problem of polio epidemic was to equip every single person with an iron lung. I mention it because in reflecting on our present crisis of COVID-19 virus, I wonder whether we as a church are not falling into a fatal error of actually thinking that the media technology can solve the crisis of the church today. You probably heard it. We have all been invited to join the new dogma of the church, and that is that we have to go online. You have to, at all costs, stream your services online. The church gurus are telling us, do or die. If you don't get online, you may find yourself, once the crisis is over, with empty sanctuaries. People having gone to places that are offering them services, that they could access by clicking their mouse. So you have to go online. We're invited to participate in services that stream online, but this participation has an odd taste to it. We are being told that we can do it out of the comfort of our living rooms. As a matter of fact, I think Sunday afternoons or Monday afternoons, you see there is a glut of pictures that show on the net, showing people in their pajamas, lying there with their coffee cups, watching the service stream online. So you're not really invited to participate. You're invited rather to just lazily, passively sit there and watch a show that goes on in front of you on your computer screen or your TV screen. My friend was telling me about his initial experience of one of those services that was on offer from their church. He said the pastor, who was still quite unacquainted with the new context, at one point invited people to stand up for worship. He said to his embarrassment, he found himself standing in front of his computer screen in his underwear. And then after surfing 5 or 6 of these services on a Sunday morning with his wife, the only participation they had in those services that offered the celebration of communion is that they managed to empty a couple bottles of wine by 11 o'clock in the morning. Now, that invitation to participation does not require you to do anything. As a matter of fact, I overheard one of the pastors inviting people to worship, saying it doesn't matter where they are, whether they're in the living room, in the bathroom, or they're actually sitting on the toilet. They could do it any way they wanted. It's hard not to wonder what our services have become over the years. Because when you think about it, the ordinary experience of Sunday service in most churches is relegated to us just showing up. It doesn't matter whether you're there 5 minutes before or 5 minutes after the service starts. Nothing depends in the service on your presence there. First, we're invited to the part we call worship, which is really just an invitation to sing. But then if you try it, in the course of singing, stop. You'll notice it makes no difference. Whether you sing or you don't sing, it makes no difference to the overall sound in the sanctuary. As a matter of fact, if you sometimes catch a transmission of a service and they're more sophisticated, they have the panoramic view and they show you the faces of the congregation, you notice that most people are not even singing. There's a few people in the front, maybe first or second row, who are jumping up and down, but the rest of the people are standing there. It makes no difference for what we call worship, because the real show is on stage. And there we've employed professional musicians, people with great voices to do the worship for us. And it's not that these people don't care that you sing, but they love the sound of the instruments they can play so well. They spend hours, arranging the songs, harmonizing their voices. And then they amplify the sound so much that instead of the voices of the people being the dominant sound of worship, all you have is what comes at you from the stage, and it makes no difference whether you participate or not. And then when that part is over, you will have somebody stand up and regurgitate God's truth for you. You don't have to do much thinking because it's all been done for you. You don't have to do much imagining because that will come in the illustrations. You really don't even have to move a finger because you don't even have to touch a Bible on a Sunday morning because it's all going to be projected for you on the screen. You just take it in, take it or leave it. Think about it or not think about it. Nothing in the service really depends on you because it's all done for you. Now, we find ourselves in this odd place where participation has deteriorated to spectatorship. We come, we sit there, we get up, we have our cookie and coffee, we go home, and nothing in the life of the church depends on us. It's all done for us by people we pay to do it. And so it's hard not to get away from the question, what were those services that are now streamlined and that we participated in once upon a time meant to be biblically? You see, what the Bible intended for those times when we all gathered together is for all of us to participate in making each other into disciples of Jesus Christ. What they were meant to do biblically was that nobody would just come just to be there, to sit, to do nothing. In order to help to remake each other for eternity with God, we had to learn how to hear from God, from His Word. We had to learn how to speak it. But now we have relegated and put it in the hands of a few people who do it for us. And I think that the best kept secret in the church today is that if we were to actually now leave people alone, just by themselves, they would realize the poverty of their own spirit, the profound incompetency of really not knowing what to do with the biblical text, how to hear from God, how to communicate God's truth to others. So I think that all that frenetic activity, some of the leading churches right now, every day putting something online to fill that void. I think it's an attempt to cover up what we all subconsciously know. That over the years, we have bought into the culture of consumerism. We have turned people into spectators instead of participants. So I wonder whether we're making a fatal error in thinking that all that media technology is actually helping us, while simply covering the real disease and the real problem. And the best solution to it is not to do more of it, but actually to go unplugged. You ought to try it. Instead of looking for that distraction of somebody doing something for you one more time on the screen, the next Sunday, this coming Sunday, why don't you turn off your computer, turn off your TV, go unplugged. Initially, it will feel for you like somebody's unplugging your respirators, and you'll think you're gonna choke to death, but you won't. When you sit there with people closest to you, rather than somebody trying to help you how to negotiate you know, that intimacy. For the first time, you'll have to sit and figure it out how you can be God's people together with people within the reach of your arms, not people out there on the screen or somewhere far on the stage doing it for you. And if you try actually to sit there for a moment without anybody talking at you from the Bible or doing something for you from the biblical text, you know, you can actually find your Bible, and I'm sure you will, because there's 4.3 copies in every household, at least in North America. And at first when you open it, you may be shocked to discover that you really don't know what to do with it, because people have always done it for you. And that's a good realization, just to sit there and realize you don't know how to hear from God. You know how to hear from your pastor. You know how to hear from your preacher, but you have no idea how to actually hear from God, from His Word. But then if you take some time with that, you'll discover that maybe together you can help each other to hear from God. And then you can learn how to speak God's truth into one another's life. And you'll notice it's not as easy as it seems on a Sunday morning. But when you do that, unplug yourself from people out there one more time doing it for you. And this pandemic is over. When you get back to being with people together, you will never again go back to the normal. You'll no longer go back to being a spectator. You'll go back to the liturgy, the work of the people, when you'll be so much better equipped not to just sit there and watch what people do for you, but you'll be able to hear from God and speak for God, and to speak truth in love into the lives of people with whom you decided to share your life. And that may be the best thing that has happened through this pandemic in your life.